What's that? You'd like to hear about our delicious Whoop offerings? Well, perhaps I can interest you in one of these. We have every accommodation you can look for. HD, DJI, or perhaps you'd be interested in one of our more modestly priced Whoop options. Well, for the low price of under $100, you can get into one of these. That's right, the Air65 by betafpv. And yes, tiny whoops have been small, light, and cheap since the beginning, but nothing's worse than a whoop that flies like poop.
That is one big pile of shit.
And not since the original Mobula 6 has one single whoop captured the hearts and minds of everyone out there. And we're going to go over all the reasons why. This is a generational release that pretty much squashes all of the competition based on a variety of factors. It's strong enough to freestyle. It's light enough to take to a racing competition today. And Jesse P over at Tiny Whoop actually put out a video with Nightwing showing him getting the weight all the way down to sub 15 grams with this exact same craft. Best of all, it costs only 95 bucks. Now you can also build your own or keep a couple of spares on hand with the new Air65 frame. Let's go over all of the components. This is using betafpv's familiar motor size right here with Gym Fan Whoop props. It has the new F4 4-in-1 flight controller that has video transmitter built in. It has a USB-C connector that you use with a little wire right here. And they've lightened it up by not including the USB on there. Now, since this has the video transmitter built in, you actually have an Express LRS receiver separate. That actually is part of the weight savings because having an external video transmitter actually adds more weight than just getting an extra receiver like this. And the blue LED that's on this receiver is nice and bright, so it gives you something to look at if you're flying it around in the evening time or in a dark area. This has betafpv's CO3 camera on board, kind of a nice little 90-degree pigtail with the BT 2.0. Battery wise, you can use something like betafpv's 300 milliamp hour battery, but for best performance, I suggest you go with a folded cell like Tattoo's 300 milliamp. I'll have links to all of this stuff below. And of course, I recommend you have Vifly's Whoop Store. I do have the latest one, but I like using the old school version because it looks more steampunk and it's just a tiny bit lighter. In the box, you get that little USB connector thing right here. You get a spare one of these canopies. These are actually super light. They're only 0.8 grams. Spare hardware for your motors, and of course you get a spare set of these Gym Fan props, 1219S. Nowhere else have we seen a bind and fly whoop release that is pretty much race ready out of the box. And that's because the racing community, the We Bleed guys, the race gal, the iGal, they're pushing the limits in what's possible in whoop technology, and they've been in close contact with a lot of the top racers out there to get something that flies just perfectly. And you know what we discovered along the way is that a whoop that is light enough to race is also way powerful enough to freestyle and very controllable and not so breakable for a beginner. This one intersects all of those things, and unlike larger drones where there's no way you would recommend a racing competition worthy craft to a beginner or a freestyler in the whoop world, you can have one thing that's all three. Air65 comes in at 17.3 grams. This is my custom racing whoop built by 5383, and it comes at 17 flat. This is an old school brushed betafpv whoop, 25.2 grams, a pretty heavy chunker. Look how old this thing is. This is how long I've been flying FPV, guys. Newbie Drone's latest comes in at 23.9 grams. The Mo Beetle comes in at 17.4 grams. Pretty light. HD Zero Eco Whoop, 23.5 grams. 0702, 27,000 kV motors. Now, Tiny Whoop YouTube channel released a video modding this thing up to take it under 15 grams.
That's crazy.
But they did some pretty hardcore mods in here. I'm going to show you what I did. I did half of their list and I got it down to
16.6 grams.
Down from the original 17.4 grams by just doing 10 minutes worth of basic stuff. Here are the things that I did to save weight. Number one, I took the little dipole thing off of the video antenna. All that takes is just a hit with a soldering iron. There's a little bit of solder and it slides right off. That saves a little bit of weight. I also peeled the heat shrink off of that antenna thing. 2, I swapped out the connector that came with it for 1 and 90-degree angled it. I think if I had to do this again, I would take the connector that it comes with and just peel off this rubbery thing on the back, and it ends up like that. This is very slightly heavier, but I really like this to be able to grip the battery connector off a lot easier when I'm done flying. And lastly, I took the heat shrink off of the receiver. It had a pretty huge chunk on there. That took me down 0.8 grams. A couple of other things I could do is I could also switch out for these plastic screws. These are kind of expensive, so I haven't done that. Right now I still have the metal. I did print myself a little camera holder like this one, but it's pretty much about the same weight. I do like that lower camera position though that you get with that camera mount, so I may end up swapping it. I didn't really feel like redoing the motor wires on this thing because they're not really too long anyway. And with just those few mods, I was able to save 0.8 grams. So 17.4 grams out of the box. And with 10 minutes of work, you can easily get it to around 16.5, 16.6, even out of the box. This is so light. I paid 180 bucks for this racing custom built one. This weighs 17.1 grams. So out of the box, this was only 0.3 grams lighter. You could compete with this no problem. And with a few minor mods, I actually got it lighter than my custom racing whoop build. I would feel confident competing with either one of these. So if I ever do go to a race for whoops, I now got a pair that I can take. Now I can't show you too much of this, but this is betafpv's 5-in-1 with some really beefy motors. So stay tuned, subscribe on the channel, and you're gonna be able to see this very soon. Too bad I can't show it to you yet. If you're starting out, I don't see why you wouldn't just buy this. Yes, you can get newbie drones, Hummingbird V3 for a little bit cheaper. So if money is absolutely critical to you and you want that little bit of durability, but you don't mind giving up a little bit of weight and performance, then you could easily go with this. But for most pilots out there, if you can spend an extra 10 or 15 bucks. Now, some of the controversy around these betafpv all-in-one boards is that with a video transmitter built in, you might not be legal for some races. Some races are outlawing these. Why? Because the video transmitters that are integrated into this board are putting too much power out. Now, supposedly in these releases coming out, they're fixed, but I'll let you guys leave in the comments, were you allowed to race on this at a race? The thing about my 533 custom racing whoop is that it has Team Black Sheep's nano video transmitter on there. So this is 100% race legal. This one, they might have to power check me with one of these bad boys on the line. I'm not really too good at using this thing. I mean, I get readings that show it's somewhere between 20 and 50 milliwatts, but I don't know if I'm actually using it right. Maybe I'll take it to Lamone so he can check it. So I'm gonna default to the racing community to let us know. What do you think, guys? This is a game changer.